Welcome everybody to the weekly WP Roundup with BJ Keeton. That's me, and every Friday afternoon we get together and we talk about the best news and tutorials and resources that I was able to find this week that was published about WordPress. So we have a very lively comment section, so make sure that you ask any kind of questions that you have, follow along and comment on any of the articles that we go through. It's a very lively comment section and it's wonderful for that, both on YouTube and on Facebook where we stream to. Also, all of the links that we're talking about are going to be in the description of this video, so you can just expand that and follow along, open them up in other tabs or whatever. However you click on links, you can find them all there. And remember, if you have to leave at any point, you can always come back to this channel wherever you're watching this, and it will be archived on the page or the channel so that you can come back and reference any of the video that you want or find any of the links that you want. So I see that there are already comments coming in. Glad to see everybody here. George, Donald, Lynn, and Dave, I'm glad to see everybody is able to make it today. I am very excited today. Today is one of those news weeks where we don't have a lot, but what we've got is absolutely amazing. I'm going to just go ahead and start it off. I know that you guys may already know about it, but for those of you who don't, you're going to be super excited. We now have Divi global defaults. This is an absolutely amazing upgrade. This is an update that everybody has been wanting for a long time, long as I can remember, and we finally have been able to launch that, and we are so proud of this. Have you guys been able to try this yet? This was where you can click through. The very first link under news is the link to the blog post about this, where you can see all about the global defaults. And what this is that you can go through now and you can set what you want the default styles to be for any kind of module across the entire site. So if you want to not have to go in through every single module, every blurb and every text, whatever it is, you can set defaults that everything will apply to. It is awesome. It's one of those that just straight up makes your life easier as you go through and use it. This is one of those building blocks where we needed to get this out. It's going to have the theme builder build on top of this to be able to have everything kind of wrapped up in one nice package. So we are incredibly excited to get this out, which means that the theme builder with the custom headers and footers is going to be coming soon. That's what we're going to be releasing is Divi 4.0, so you guys can look forward to that soon. If you look at the global defaults, if you scroll down, watch the video is great. And if you scroll down through the page, you'll see that you can access it from within the builder itself. You just click a button on the side and it'll bring you to a gray button defaults that you can then go through and change, like all the stylings for buttons without having to copy and paste and extend and do all of that. You can also manage the revision history, so any changes that you make within those global defaults, if you don't like them, you can always go back and revert to a previous version, which is amazing. You won't have to be just constantly figuring out with Control Z within that little window of undoing. You can basically make new style templates and UI kits doing this, and I know that we're gonna have some tutorials on that coming up in the coming weeks on how to like make a UI kit using this feature, and so we are crazy excited about this. And if you are a member or looking to be a member or anything like that, right now we have a 10% off discount, so that if you click into the first link and you want to become an Elegant Themes member, you can get 10% off of that for your for either an upgrade, a new account, however you do it, if you want. So take us up on that, because it is a really good deal to be able to get a brand new feature like global updates, global defaults, and the 10% discount as well. I see people are commenting a bunch with the about headers and footers and everything. So Dave asked about custom headers and footers. I would look soon. We're planning the launch of that right now for Divi 4.0. We are in the planning stages to be able to put that out. I don't have a date on that though, but it is being planned behind the scenes right now to launch. Madalena from Romania and Jacek from Poland, awesome. From South Africa, fantastic. I see Donald asked about first mention of the Woocommerce update. That should, and don't hold me to this, but the last that I saw something said that the Woocommerce update would be the next one up. When I looked at the list last time, that's the next one in the queue. I don't know where it stands now because I think that was about a week and a half ago that I saw it. But the two that I knew about that were coming out soon were this global default and Woocommerce. So it was kind of a toss-up which one would be first. So we're looking hopefully at a Woocommerce next. I see Josh says that it saves a ton of time, was playing with it for just a few minutes, which is about all I've been able to play with it as well. So I'm excited to really dig in and see how it works. I love learning these kinds of new features that we release. Peter says global defaults seem limited until the class-based version is released. Then you'll be excited. Most important to me is the theme builder, though, and I totally get that. I completely understand that, Peter, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to roll this out right now. It is the global defaults that people have been wanting, but if you're waiting for the class one, that should all roll together in the theme builder the way that I understand what you're looking for and how the theme builder works. So this was kind of that stepping stone to make sure that everything plays nice with each other. Let's see. Oh my, lots of them. Let us scroll down. I need to stop my clients to import any predefined Divi page, Divi offers. Is this on your list too? They broke everything. What happened, Devjeet? I'm not sure if I completely follow with the importing of predefined Divi pages. What exactly happened with that? Let me know in the comments if you can. How do you add a recent post in Divi below the blog articles like extra? The only way in Divi that I know how to do that, since we don't have the category creator in Divi right now like we do in Extra, is I use a separate blog module and I just keep it to one post and have it be the newest post, and then take the other blog module that's on the page and do an offset by one, so that the one I'm looking for to display the full post of the new one is one module, and then the archives and thumbnails and things like that are the second. Hopefully that maybe will help you right now, because the one in Extra with the category builder is really cool. See things. This is how I read. I talk to myself. The only downside is that the font color selector setting light or dark doesn't change after you apply a global color. That might be, Donald, that might be because you already have selected that in the module and changed it. The way that I understand this is that global defaults will not change or override any module specific changes. So if you have existing pages that you have completed and made look exactly like you want to, if you go in and you change one of the defaults to something that's different, it shouldn't adjust on any individual modules like that with the light and dark text or anything like that, unless you go in and extend that style to apply to everything. Though, because the individual modules should override the default, otherwise you wouldn't be able to customize any individual modules, if that makes sense. Alvaro Martinez asks, how can you make a timeline with Divi? I want to say we have an article on that with the Divi's blurb module. Yes, we do. I will post a link to that in, Let's see, Alvaro, I'm posting a link to that in both Facebook and the YouTube channel. Facebook and the YouTube. Sorry, I got confused channel. So you should be able to see how to make the timeline like that. That was one of our articles, one of the very first ones that Donietta did when she came on. It was really awesome. See, there's also an article on there called the Divi timeline module, and that's a separate plugin, but it will also be something that you're looking for. But those are the ways that I know how to do it, since that's what I've seen on our blog. DebG says predefined templates imported by the user is a bad idea. I don't know. I've run into that kind of issue myself when I've pulled things from my own. What you said before is that it broke everything. How exactly does it break? How do the layouts break on your site whenever they bring in their own? Because that's something that it might need to be a support ticket if they're importing and it's breaking stuff. There's a clash somewhere, and that might have to be a support ticket to figure out the specifics. Josh says, Nick in one of the groups said that the next update was source set and dynamic content. I know a while back we released the dynamic content update where you pull in and it will change dynamically based on the criteria that you set. The responsive content, right. You said maybe it was called responsive content. We already have dynamic content. That's one that I don't know about. I didn't see that comment, so I could follow up on it. And I had that in the list of things that I saw. It was only 3 or 4 things that had led up right to the theme builder. So that's one that I honestly don't know about. But if Nick mentioned it, then it's definitely something that's in the works. Dead air. Well, I used to do a radio show when I was younger, and they, you can have dead air, and it's very hard not to do when you're live and trying to read through comments to make sure that you get to everything. Bianca on Facebook asks, I haven't updated Divi already. Is it safe? What happens with existing posts and pages? Bianca, with the new update, with the global default update, you should not have any problems. It won't affect anything that has already been styled using the modules or CSS or anything like that. It won't overwrite them. The individual modules will override any global defaults. So you should be safe on that. The only issue that I have seen so far with an update is and that I've seen this reported in a Facebook group, so I haven't experienced it myself. Someone said that background images they had set to parallax didn't show up, but that might be something within their site. That was the only thing that I've seen so far in terms of having styles and the pages that you've already created with posts and Divi and all of that stuff. You should not have to worry about any of that. I see Kieran says, I can also confirm we're experiencing the break. Also, I haven't personally investigated, but he's worked around it by building from scratch on each post. We run a very busy music review and news site, so it's not a great solution. That is true. I've personally not had any issues with importing the predefined layouts from Elegant Themes. I'll go in on the ones that we offer every week, and I've used those a lot, and I've not had any issues with things breaking there. The only issue I've ever had was pulling one in separately from somewhere else. And it just didn't like the CSS on the site that I'd already pulled in. And that's what ended up breaking for me. One thing that you could try to do, Kieran, is if you are using the if you're using the predefined layouts not as an entire page, you could start a new page and copy the row or column or module or styles or however you need to do that, and then paste that into a new page. I've saved those into the library before and brought them in where I didn't want to worry about an entire page layout and having to deal with cleaning that up. I just needed one section and have saved it to the library and copied it over. And I believe that you can now do that between instances of the builder that you have open as well. So that might fix some of the stuff that you are having issues with on your site. Other than that, I don't know. That might be a support team ticket that goes in and looks at the site to see if there's some other conflict under the hood. See, Tobias, let's see, okay, helping Debjeet, Uncle Social, says, I'd love to know how many lines of code there are now in Divi versus WordPress core. I have no clue. That's a good idea. That would be a fun one to see, given how in depth and everything that we are right now. Oh, and Nancy says that Mac did a video on the timeline subject too, so that's awesome. That's good to know that that Mac has a video out of that one. And yeah, Tobias, there may be possible to do a paste bin or a git share. And Donald says, sorry, BJ, it's the other way around. When I set a global color for the text, you weren't able to go back into the module and change the light to dark from the font color drop down. Now, that is not the way I understood it was supposed to work. So that might be a support ticket as well, because when I saw Nick in a group, I believe it was this morning, had said that that in particular I point at the monitor where you're on right here, that in particular should not happen, so that you can always go to the module over the global, because you'll have to do individual tweaks here and there. But yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to happen. And Mohammed, I see you from Egypt. Hello, hello. Glad that you're able to make it. And Nancy, just even I would assume that Mac did. He has so many Divi and web design videos out there that it is honestly impossible to keep up with them. Someone asked about a plugin a few weeks ago called Cart Flows, and I looked to see if we had anything on Elegant Themes, and we didn't have any under Elegant Themes, but Mac had a video for Cart Flows, was the first result looking for it. So he has a little bit of everything on there. He's so good at what he does. And Donald, check. I'm not saying that it's not, because new features, you know how all of that goes. But if that is doing that, that would probably be asking, because that is well above what my pay grade is to know how to fix that one. And Shanor asks, I always ask the same question. Don't mind, please. When is Divi 4.0 realizing it's 1 a.m. at night? There, you'll sleep for now. That one is soon. I promise you that one is soon. We're planning the launch of Divi 4.0 right now. It's in its last round of QA as far as I know, and that one should launch within the window of soon, because that is all I know. I don't think that we have a full date. As soon as I have a date, I did find out this week that we will be announcing the launch date of that beforehand. So as soon as I have a date, you guys will have a date. I promise. And Dimitri, I'm sorry that I'm butchering your name on Facebook. Like I said, that one, as soon as I have a date, y'all will have a date, but soon is as quick as I know about that one. So for those of you, I've made it through the comments now, which I'm very happy about. You guys are awesome today, by the way. I really love the being able to talk to you guys like this. If you haven't updated, to reiterate on this one, we did the global default update. It is pushed out now. if you have not updated, as far as we have planned, everything should go smoothly and your existing content should not be affected. You can always roll it back if something happens and there's a bug or a conflict, but it is designed not to affect anything. So you can now go play with global defaults to your heart's content. It's very, 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 very good. Like, I'm so happy for this one. It's going to make all of our lives easier. So if you haven't updated, go do that. It's fantastic and launched yesterday. Check out the first link under the description of this video so that you can check it out for yourself and watch the video, read the blog post, read through the comments. It's good stuff. I'm really, really, really happy about this. I was gonna say proud of this one, but I had literally zero to do with the development of it, so I'm just happy about it right now. So the next thing that I want to cover, the next thing that I actually put on here under news, is one that I found earlier this week reading around. And Kevin Muldoon, who is a longtime writer of the WordPress, pretty much every blog that you see about WordPress has a few articles, or by few, I mean a lot of articles written by Kevin Muldoon. Very prolific, very knowledgeable about WordPress, and he wrote an article this week on why he removed advertisements from his blog. I think this one is definitely worth reading for everyone out there, because it's gotten to the point now where pretty much all of us are running ad blockers of some kind. They come default on like iPhones now for ad blocking in Safari, same for Chrome and everything like that. Firefox, that's the one I was looking for. Sam on Firefox. And he goes through a lot of reasons behind this, that he made this decision. And I wanted to make sure that you guys had thought about this as well, because the return on running ads on your sites right now may not be worth the trouble for your users. So you might be able, one of the things he brings up is how the revenue dropped for all content sites over the years here. And the new ways that you have to generate income tend to be like paywalls and things like that. It could also be user support. And that's really what he gets at here, is that there are benefits to running no ads, and that you can then use that space to promote that you can use that space to promote your other channels, your other businesses, the content on that site, anything like that, because banner ads are really getting to be either too obtrusive and people bounce from your site immediately, or they don't actually earn anything and they just make the user experience worse, which Google is now looking at for a PageRank indicator. So I really wanted to bring this to your attention, that it's not so much news as it is food for thought. That after reading this, I very well may be taking any of the banner ads off of side projects that I have, and replacing them with either Patreon banners for the audience of that particular project, or coffee or donation things, just, or later pay maybe, different things like that for the support of people who use that content. Otherwise, the ads, I know that for me, Patreon makes more for my podcasts than banner ads on the sites ever have. That I make more in a month on Patreon than banner ads did. So it's been a benefit for me. So while, like I said, it's not news so much, it's something that I thought was big enough that one of the biggest WordPress bloggers out there, one of the most prolific and prominent WordPress bloggers, has decided to completely cut banner ads from his personal site. So I wanted to let you guys know about that in case you wanted to follow suit, because it's a big decision. And if you have a game plan in the works and kind of an exit strategy from Google AdSense, then you might be able to move forward, because you can still do affiliate links. You can still do things like that for really working with products that you really like, Divi, and it's okay, because the ads have never been the major source of most people's income. But I wanted you guys to know that with Kevin doing it, it's very well thought out and deliberate choice. So some of you guys may want to think about that too. And David Reed says, soon for the header builder is sometime next year, maybe. Unless there is something so catastrophic that it warrants that. That is not the case. I can think of literally nothing that will cause it to go into next year. So I am so crossing my fingers that's not the case. People working on the website request. Got that. Okay, so that is troubleshooting. That's fantastic. And then WG says, I have ad blocking. They're really annoying. And that Patreon may be the alternative. That is absolutely true. That's what worked for me. Uncle Social says, I don't think this weekly show is sponsored by Dollar Shave Club. It is not. I'm a little furry today. My beard trimmer might have been out of battery. And so you get slightly bearded BJ. But that was what I had under news. I had the major news of the global defaults for Divi, which, again, you should update to. This is going to make all of your lives easier. And then why Kevin Muldoon removed all banner ads from his site. And that is absolutely important for everyone to consider, because the way that we consume media is changing. And the way that we pay for media is changing. So our content strategies on our sites should probably change as well. So moving forward into the tutorials, Jason published an article on elegant themes. I could not put this not put this at the top of the tutorials section, where this is the ultimate guide to speeding up your Divi website. And this is something that gets covered every single week that we talk about this. People have this issue that websites are inherently slow. All websites are inherently slow. I say that because they've not been optimized. You put them up and it's like, hey, I've got a website, but you've done nothing to optimize it. So Jason put together an incredibly in-depth speed up page for Divi and he goes into the key topics of like how a website's displayed, the built-in Divi speed performances, and just everything. It blows my mind how in-depth this is. When we were talking about an ultimate guide for this, this is the kind of platonic ideal of the ultimate guide. So static CSS file generation talks about JavaScript and CSS minification. He just goes through all the different ways that you can optimize your DNS, that you can work with Cloudflare and different kinds of CDNs. He talks about the way that hosting works. He gives a chart that breaks down the reviews of certain hosts and shows how they affect different kinds of hosts affect site speed, like VPS versus cloud versus managed versus shared, and things like that. He talks about how to optimize the time to first byte, the TTFB optimizations. Talks about caching, minification and aggregation, gzip compression, like I said, CDNs, image optimizations, video optimizations, quality plugins, how to conduct the speed test and what to look for, as well as how to avoid possible conflict with Divi's built-in performance options and third-party plugins, because one of the biggest issues on any website when it comes to speed is that there are plugins and themes that aren't playing nice together. So he talks about ways to troubleshoot that and figure that out as well. He also has some quick overviews of suggested practices and resources, such as getting the latest PHP version, like we had talked about last week, how to optimize your database, DNS lookups, and just everything else. Like, this is one of the best posts that I've seen on our blog in the almost 3 years since I started freelancing here, and it is absolutely just wonderful. Wait, 3 years? Was it 2016? 2 years. It's been over 2 years since I started freelancing here. That's what it was. It wasn't 3 years. It was 3 years since I transitioned careers. In the time that I've been here, this is one of the best posts. It is fantastic, and I cannot emphasize how important it is for each and every one of you to click this link and just see if there's something that you can do to speed up your website, because it's such a common question that everyone asks. So it's awesome. And Jason, I cannot give him enough kudos for this one. So the comments, Uncle Social on the subject of advertising and supporting creators, Elegant Themes really should consider a merch store as a revenue stream. How many people want a Divi shirt? That's true. That is something that I know we've talked about in the past. I don't know where that ever got into actual production as far as it went, but that's something I know that we've discussed and joked about and said would make us millions and millions of dollars, just people buying Divi shirts. I would hope it would be millions and millions of dollars. And then to be fair, Tobias says he didn't like the guide, and Tobias would like submit an alternative speed up Divi article to Elegant Themes and get paid. How? That is, 1 second, and I will get you the link to that, Tobias. That will be open submissions, Elegant Themes. I really should have this post bookmarked as often as I look for it. Tobias, there is a link. There's a link that I'm posting in both the Facebook and YouTube channels now for the call for open submissions that we've got. You can then go through that and actually submit any kind of content that you want for our blog. We are looking for content all the time. There should be a link to the form in there. That will lead you to our Asana form to put in all the information. And anybody can do this. This is something that we have all the time, that we want to make sure that you guys can get those ideas out that you have, because y'all are super knowledgeable. Y'all know so much about WordPress and Divi and just online business in general, that we want to showcase that. And I believe that it is $250 per article. I don't want to say that wrong, but I think that's what it is. Yeah, flat rate of $250 USD. So that would be something I think that all of you would might like to do, because we're always looking. And Daryl, I can't believe that you would want to smack around a BJ bobblehead. That would be so mean. Of all the things, like, as a small WordPress tangent on that one, of all the things that my students did to get back at me and make fun and like really just play pranks and everything, they made masks of me that they would wear to class from old pictures and stuff like that to be funny. None of them ever made a bobblehead. That really surprises me that I never had any of them make a bobblehead or anything to do, just to do like smack it around like that. That really does amaze me now that I think about it. So, let me get a drink, and then the next one under tutorials is, should you make an app? This is a link that I included the link to the WP Shout article, which is actually a link to a playlist on YouTube where it's how to build an app, and it's everything that you need and don't need. And I've bookmarked this so that I can watch this entire playlist, this entire series, because I trust WP Shout. They are good at what they do. And with this being a recommendation and an entire long playlist that goes through this process, The way that he puts it is that this isn't the overly optimistic, you can do it kind of cheerleading videos, or nor is it the fatalistic, all apps are garbage kind of time wasting videos. This is a very real look at what the app making process is. And that's really refreshing to me, because there is a middle ground between those, because it's a lot of work to do and there's a lot of payoff that can come from it. But there is a lot of middle ground between the overly positive and the overly pessimistic. So I've bookmarked this to work my way through this playlist, and like I said, having it be recommended from WP Shout, it got a bookmark from me because I trust their recommendations. Tobias made a PWA progressive web app this week, and you were surprised at how easy it was. Now, that I'm curious about. Why was that so easy for you? What was so much easier than you thought? That being said, I know what's on here. The very last thing on the list, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I'll just use that as a segue. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the description today, you'll see a should you use WordPress to build a web app. So that ties in with what Tobias just brought up. With making the PWA being surprisingly easier than he thought. That would be kind of what this is talking about, using WordPress to build apps, because of how dynamic WordPress can be. Tobias says you can find all the plugins to do the work for you. Super PWA is a WordPress plugin that can do all the hard work for you. Tobias, that is one that I am just going to put in my... I Google things during the show and then leave the tab up when y'all mention something so I can go back and look at it later. And Super PWA is now one of those. That's one I don't know about. I've only ever used for things like that as individual plugins I've kind of mishmashed together. And that's one of the things that this article is talking about, that you can do so many things in WordPress, that it's such an extensible and robust content management system that you can really do so many things with it like that will handle it, because WordPress can now be used as a back end without even worrying about the front. I know that we've talked about this before, working with Headless Wordpress, and what that is using the WordPress backend as your server where all of the data crunching goes on, and then you have other things working on the front end. Nowadays, you can do that with the REST API, and you can do that with Divi, with the dynamic content modules and features like that. It's really, really awesome to do that. And the thing that it brings up at the end, when does it make sense to do this? When should you use WordPress to make your progressive web app, as opposed to running on something like Vue or React or something like that solidly? And I don't even want to say Vue or React; those are front-end frameworks. Something like Angular or Node or something like that. And you can do anything that you want, anything that you can with those most of the time with WordPress, and it's a lot easier to navigate. One of the things that they bring up at the very end of this is you get an admin interface that's very easy to navigate, both you and your clients, as well as updating the app's content quickly and having robust extensibility through the plugins like Tobias mentioned. It's worth reading that, and that's from TorqueMag, and the very last one on the list today. So when he said that, I was like, I've got a PWA article. Let's talk about that. And Tobias says Super PWA was free plugin, but please notice that if your site is heavily cached, that PWA works offline because of the cache, that it's a pain to deal with the cache if you're developing. Yeah, that would be true. And that's a good point about the PWA working off of the cache, because it would make everything super speed up. And for those of you who were not around last week, you should go check out the chat transcripts from this video from last week's stream, because Tobias gave a fantastic analogy of how caching works for the web that will make anybody be able to understand how web caching works. It's just it was just brilliant. But I'm going to make you go back and do your homework to find it. So the PWA thing is great. WordPress is awesome for that. And and moving away from that, and I'll get, if there are any comments or anything, we'll talk about that as well. But moving away from that and down the tutorials list a little bit, we're always talking about ranking, about search ranking, about what the best ways to do that are. And Yoast did a webinar about this, and they have published the 15 questions from it about ranking factors, kind of recapping their webinar. And they have a link to that webinar in it. And they talk about what ranking factors are. They talk about how user experience is affected by, or how it affects how user experience affects page ranking. If UX, how Google determines it. Word count is a ranking factor, because it's like there's not a true answer to that. Because like you need the right amount of content. This is what Yoast says. You need the right amount of content for answering the question that the user has. If you can write 500 words on a topic and that feels right, then definitely don't stop at 200. Where you need to be as clear as you can, because you won't rank highly if you really don't answer that question. And one thing they were talking about says, is weather a ranking factor? And he's like, well, if you think about it, no, of course not. But if you're looking about, specific weather conditions like a heat wave or a place that ships today, it can influence where people click. It can influence what they're searching for, because like searches for portable air conditioners go up during heat waves. So you can take advantage of things like that. That bold text is not a ranking factor, so don't bold all of your keywords. Bounce rate being a ranking factor. Site speed, meta description. Is PWA a ranking factor? And they're not sure if it ranks you faster, but it unlocks more capabilities, which is a better user experience, which is a ranking factor. Talks about, can Google understand text and evaluate the quality of text? That's one that I thought was really interesting, because Google does not know what quality text is. That they know language, they employ linguists, but they know that people can only have 20 words in short-term memory, so longer sentences will be hard. And Juiced, the creator and former CEO of Yoast, says, one of the things that our linguistic team learned while doing the research is that it's hard to get the topic out of a text if the text is poorly written. So even if a text is more eloquent and uses more fancy words, it might actually be harder to figure out what that text is about. I think good, readable, and understandable text has a higher chance of Google getting to understand what it's about. And this is the most important thing about writing for the internet and getting SEO. If you write text that is understandable, you have achieved your goal. I said this at the beginning of every freshman comp class that I've ever taught. I have asked people if they would rather write like they talked, or write like they write, or write like a writer. And almost everyone was like, I want to write like a writer. And I'm like, no, you want to write like you talk, because writing is communication. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do through any kind of writing is to communicate your ideas. And these days, we're trying to communicate our ideas to robots first and then people, because we have to get ranked for the people to see our words. And so, one thing that if you think that you are if you are a robust writer, like just this long-winded, writerly writer, you're going to have to try to pull that back. I've had to. It's taken me 10 years of writing for the web and teaching and doing that to really get a feel for the length of sentences and paragraphs and things like that. And it is the most important thing that I've learned, is how to effectively communicate with people, with page breaks, with line breaks, with shorter sentences that get right to the point, and not using as many fancy words, but using specific words. Specific words are the most important element of anything that you're writing. And just looking at rankings and things like that. This is Professor Beach's writing lesson for you guys today for content creation. Talking about this, evaluate the quality of text. There is one word that you should keep to a bare minimum in every single post that you ever write. Thing. You should absolutely keep the word thing or things at a bare minimum in your writing, because they don't tell Google anything. They don't tell your reader anything. They give absolutely no indication of what you're writing about, because things can be anything. It can be my water bottle. This is a thing. My asthma inhaler, this is the thing. My Fitbit, this is the thing. My Game Boy, it's a thing. All of those will be completely different blog posts, reaching different people who are asking different questions. So if you're saying something along the lines of, if you're writing, see, I said that if you're saying something, right? That means nothing. But if I change that to, if you are writing a sentence, saying something, writing a sentence. Writing a sentence is far, far, far more specific. So if you are writing a sentence to try to answer a very specific question for your reader and and Google to know what you're writing about, the more specific of language that you can use, the better content that you're creating. They don't have to... you don't have to use fancy keywords. I mean, you don't have to have ultra long tail keywords, and you don't have to use really, eloquent language. You just need to use communicative language to rank. And Josh, I'm sorry. If your keyword that you're trying to rank for is thing, then you're doing well. Then following the way that we talk and we write, a lot of us don't speak that specifically either. If that's your keyword, you're doing good, my friend. Having said, read none of your work. Tobias says, I'm surprised at how smart Google is. One of our blog posts got ranked number 0 as a featured snippet. Yes. And Google found the definition in the middle of the blog post. That is always the most amazing to me, Tobias, is whenever I see a blog that Google has pulled from, and it's at the end or middle of that post, and I have to use Control F to find exactly where that answer came from. I've always been amazed by that, but I'm happy for you to get a number 0. That's awesome. Bianca asks, is it useful to implement a table of contents in a blog post? And I say yes. But there are, with caveats, you need to make sure that it is a long enough post to warrant that. Otherwise, it looks like keyword stuffing. that if you're using lots of different sections, let's say Jason's ultimate guide to Divi speed up, he has a table of contents on that article because it's a 5,000 word article or something, which is an insane amount to scroll through. And he has a bulleted list that works like a table of contents that you can click on and then go into the and then go directly to that section. That kind of thing will affect ranking for not only the keywords, but the anchor text for those for that part of that page, and user experience will be better because the users no longer have to scroll through the entire page like Tobias and I were talking about just then, to be able to find the content that they need. If you're going back to this site, this article, and you want to read about video optimization, you don't have to scroll down through the first 3/4 of it to find it. You click that and you're immediately scrolled down to the video optimization section. That's when I suggest using a table of contents. Otherwise, if you've got a normal 1,000-page or a 1,000-page, 1,000-word blog post, I wouldn't worry about it. Generally, I don't even like using the writer in me doesn't like using in this post we're going to talk about this, and this kind of introductory sentence that you get that a lot of people will use to get the keyword in there. There are more natural ways of doing that where it works almost like a table of contents where you can link to those sections as well. Most of the time, I do it on long form posts. They're 2,500 to 3,000 and up when you're covering different major sections that they'll go into. Bianca asked, do I use a plugin for that, or can I build it with anchor links yourself? You can build it with anchor links and arias. There are different ways to do it. I'm sure there is a plugin for that because there is a plugin for literally everything else that I've ever looked for. But you can do that with anchor links. And if I am... Yeah, what Jason did it with the, like if you're looking for minification and aggregation, the link that you click at the top takes you down to the, hashtag minify part of it, and you can see how that's coded in the HTML if you inspect the page and view the page source. You can show that because off the top of my head, I literally can't remember exactly how you put that section into jump down. I think it's an aria and a section ID and some stuff like that. Oh my goodness, Uncle Social says so many more great links today in so little time. That is absolutely true. As it's 2:55, holy cow. Tobias got 30 featured snippets and even got the what is Woocommerce in Danish. What is Woocommerce in Danish? That is fantastic, man. Not much competition when there's only 5 to 6 million people that speak your language. You tickled me. That makes sense, but it's still, yeah, I agree with Josh. That makes sense, but it's still great. That is awesome. But there are a lot of tutorials. I am going to go ahead and move down to the resources, but there are lots of tutorials in here that are really worth looking at. How to manage your content with WP scheduled posts. I would lose my mind if it wasn't for scheduling posts, like all the content that's put out between Elegant Themes and, my podcasts and blogs and things like that. It's like without scheduling, it would all just be, my mind would be gone. There is one that one of our new freelancers, Orana, did called How to Create Four-Cornered Fixed Navigation with Divi, and it's beautiful and it's great, and just good stuff all around this week. And then I want to talk about under the resources to move down to it before we run out of time here. Blog. I was looking at the URL. Securi has an article called 7 Things That You Should Monitor in WordPress Activity Logs. And this one is important for pretty much everybody. It's because that's something that a lot of us don't think about all the time, is to look at the activity logs of our sites and the talk about website changes. Like, it will show you if anything has changed, like your DNS, your WAF, your firewall. Can't even say it. Your firewall. I was about to start stuttering. I could feel it. Any kind of blog post changes, WordPress plugin changes. Some malware will affect your plugins, theme changes, things like that. It'll show you lines of code a lot of times that if you're changing, a lot of these activity logs will show what line or file were edited. And if you're like, I didn't edit a file, then you know what's up. Just things like that. It's a really good article to keep in mind and to really refresh yourself on what kinds of WordPress issues are the most important, even if they're not the most pressing. There is a WP the podcast episode on is the WordPress Customizer outdated, which is a really interesting idea, especially as page builders like us are moving into like the default the global defaults that was just released, the theme builder coming up. How would we like to integrate with the theme customizer? Do we need to? Do you guys like it? Is it outdated? Is that something that the entire core needs to move away from? Just stuff like that. They talk about shopping cart abandonment rates at Code NWP. That's a really interesting article. And then we've talked about this before, but I want to wrap up by pointing out an article that I think a lot of you guys will get a lot of use out of, that WP Beginner posted, the 7 best SMTP service providers with high email deliverability. That I know that we've talked in the past about that there have been SMTP issues across various hosts. Sorry, I got distracted by a comment. The best host on how to for sending emails, and sometimes you don't get it because your SMTP is not set up right, and they go through the mail transfers, simple mail transfer protocol to be able to go through stuff like a MailJet and Sendinblue and Mailgun, SendGrid, stuff like that, on what works for all of them. And a lot of them, I've used SendGrid, had good luck with it in the past. I know a lot of you guys use a bunch of them. Mailgun lets you send the first 10,000 of them free, and then you move into a paying tier, which is more than enough for small websites who don't have to send out a ton of emails. But anyway, it's a very good thing. See, I did it again. I get it just talking like that. A very good article for you to check out on SMTP, because I know a bunch of you guys who've mentioned this in the past have run into issues. And one last thing I see, Uncle Social says the WordPress Customizer, like the plugin repository, is a mess. It's undisciplined, and different devs shove different stuff all over the place. And yeah, it is. One of the reasons for that is that a couple of years ago, they were really pushing as WordPress core that everything for theme options being pushed into the theme customizer. So they were really getting plugin and theme developers to put anything that they needed for like specific options to put in there, and it's turned it into a mess. So I'm not sure where the future of that is, but it's a really good idea, because right now, you're right, it's a mess. So anyway, I'm past my time, you guys, and so I should probably stop taking up your time, because I know that you have an absolutely busy Friday afternoon, as most people do. So I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank you for the fantastic discussion. I love you guys for doing that, and for just simply existing as well. But you guys are an absolute delight to talk to every week. So make sure that if you haven't updated Divi yet, that you try out the new global defaults that were put in this week with 3.26. Make sure that you subscribe and like on Facebook, all of this stuff if you see this and you're not already. And remember to ring the bell down here on YouTube, and tell Facebook that you want to get updated when we go live, so that you will, anytime that that I go live, Jason, Donietta, or Mac goes live, that you will be notified. Mac does his streams on 6 a.m. Eastern, on Monday mornings talking about new theme releases. So you should be getting one this Monday about this particular new update. And Jason and Donietta do one on Tuesday afternoons. That's a Divi use case to show you how to use Divi in a real life scenario. They're always entertaining, and I've learned more about Divi from them than pretty much anywhere on the internet by watching those use cases. So check those out for sure, and let them know that you want to be notified. It's been good to see all of you guys. You're welcome for the tips, Bianca, and I hope that y'all's week is fantastic, and that I will see you again next Friday afternoon. Bye, everybody.